you turn on Fox News and go over to that channel, you usually are expecting pro-Trump Republicans, maybe even some just corporate Republicans flat out, trying to defend the GOP and talking about how great Trump is, no matter what horrible policy he pushes through. However, on the spookiest day of the year, October 31st, this is actually quite spooky for the Republican Party. Tucker Carlson, of all people, came out and did a segment where he didn't necessarily attack Trump, but it was negative towards Trump and starting to question him for his supposed flip on the war in Afghanistan.
Well, it's not often covered in the news anymore, but American forces are still fighting in Afghanistan. It's been 17 years since we first sent troops there to topple the Taliban government. We still have thousands of Americans in the country. So far this year, 8 of them have been killed. President Trump hates this. We happen to know he has often complained to people around him about the quagmire that Afghanistan has become. You remember that when he ran for president, one of Trump's central promises was to keep America out of pointless foreign wars like this one. Permanent Washington despised him for saying that because it implicated them in their failures. But voters appreciated hearing it. And yet somehow the war in Afghanistan has continued to this day fruitlessly. That's thanks almost entirely to bullying from our thoroughly discredited foreign policy establishment. They are happy to keep things the way they are. 17 years later, though, we as a country have almost nothing to show for what we spent there, the lives and the money. The Taliban remains strong. The U.S.-backed government controls barely half of that country. This spring, the DOJ described Afghanistan as, quote, largely lawless, weak, and dysfunctional. Most depressing of all, we're no longer even aiming at any kind of military victory. The best we can hope for is a sort of stalemate that keeps the Taliban partly in power. So what is the point of all of this? Well, some people are getting rich from it. Drive through the D.C. suburbs sometime and see for yourself. But most Americans derive no benefit at all. Some families are paying the highest possible price. 2 years in, it's not too late for the president to deliver on a campaign promise he once made and end this disaster. Tomorrow might be a good day to start with that.
Alright, so Tucker Carlson, he's usually wrong on most issues. Healthcare, for example, immigration. However, the one area where Tucker Carlson is surprisingly good at, I'd say, is foreign policy. I didn't know this until just researching Tucker Carlson, but apparently 1 year after the Iraq War, he officially stopped supporting it and saying that he should have trusted his instincts when all of the mainstream media, Fox News, even MSNBC, CNN, back when they didn't flat out hate Trump and any Republican, they all pushed the same narrative that Iraq was responsible for 9/11, then Iraq had WMDs, and then just that Saddam Hussein was a bad guy and we needed to take out all bad guys, apparently. So Tucker Carlson, apparently after 1 year, he flat out started not defending the Iraq War and attacking the Iraq War, saying it was a nightmare and a mess. And apparently as well, during the whole Syria issue this year, one of my first videos I covered was about Syria, but not just Alex Jones was apparently talking about how it could be a false flag or just not U.S. responsibility. Tucker Carlson apparently came out and said that we should be suspicious of the involvement of the chemical attacks and that we definitely should not escalate the situation in Syria. So on foreign policy, you can give Tucker Carlson some credit, and he doesn't seem as brainwashed as most of the Republican and right-wing news hosts and analysts, such as Ben Shapiro, the biggest Iraq apologist there ever is, Laura Ingraham, Tommy Lauren. So, you see, Tucker Carlson, he seems to be at least somewhat respectable in that regard. And he is right calling out Trump, and Trump can still fix this. That would definitely boost his popularity. So I have no idea why he hasn't gone for it yet, especially since he's trying to be considered the greatest president of all time. He wants to be considered that. A step in the right direction would definitely be to pull out of Afghanistan, and not just Afghanistan, pull out of every U.S. involvement in most of them. seeing as how most of the U.S. involvements we're currently in are quite pointless, especially since the fact that we are involved in, I believe, 8 countries. It was 7 under Obama, which Tucker Carlson doesn't mention. Is that we actually increased the amount of countries we're involved in, because under Trump we haven't pulled out of any military conflicts, and now we are involved in Niger. I don't know why we'd be involved in Niger. I'm pretty sure most Americans can't even point out Niger on a map. It's in Africa, by the way, for those who don't know. But the main point here is that there's still some respectability out of Fox News, especially since they didn't flat out shut Tucker Carlson down, since they really can't. Especially been going for some of these um, non-mainstream media sources. Actually, he's been going on the Adam Carolla show. He went to Politicon, so he's actually been trying to diversify himself. Maybe he might break off from Fox News within the next 2 years. That would be a nice start for Tucker Carlson.